The hardest part for every wrestling fan is having to say goodbye to so many of your favorites so young. Hello and welcome. This is the newest episode of React. As for the first time, I will not be reacting to a video, and I will be reacting to the sudden news of Chyna's passing away. In no uncertain terms, we, as pro wrestling fans, have the unenviable task of seeing a lot of our favorites go away. The list is never ending of those who have passed away young that had a part in professional wrestling. And Chyna, much like a lot of those people, had her demons. She battled her demons, and in many regards, I thought she beat them. But you never know if you don't know the person. When Chyna debuted back in WWE in around 1996, during Triple H's feud with Goldust as Hunter's bodyguard, she was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before in the WWE. She was a pioneer for managers. She was a pioneer for women because she was a bodyguard. We at that point never saw a woman as a bodyguard. But during her tenure, Chyna would become one of the founding members of D-Generation X. Chyna would also become the first woman to enter the Royal Rumble, a former Intercontinental Champion, and the first woman to win the Intercontinental title. She also was a multiple-time Women's Champion and practically paved the way for the women's division with the likes of Ivory and Jacqueline during the early part of the 2000s and later part of the 1990s, and that set up the rise in popularity, the enormous rise in popularity that the division would see in the later part of the decade, with the likes of Lita and Trish Stratus and Victoria leading the way. Though Chyna's tenure in WWE ended on a sour note, what she's done in WWE is still not going unrecognized. And though she might not be in the Hall of Fame yet, there are a number of people that aren't who should be. And I think Jim Cornette said it best when he said that for lack of a better word, when he said that if you're not on good terms with Vince, you're screwed. And though Chyna left on bad terms with Vince and Hunter and Stephanie, I have not seen one person who is in professional wrestling say a bad thing about Chyna. I have not seen one person say a bad thing about her. And everything that anyone has had to say was positive. How much she was a pleasure to work with. How nice she was. How she inspired them to get into wrestling. And then there are few and far between that are defending her, and that are defending WWE. And I will say this, that I will get to this before the end. I'll get to that before the end of the video, but not right now. Because I will say this, that not only was Chyna a part of the WWE, I think in many regards when Chyna showed up in TNA a few years back, teaming up with Kurt Angle, yes, her tenure was short-lived, but she went out on her terms. She had the one more match that so many other people couldn't say they had, and she did what she does best, and that's be unlike any other person that we've seen, and be extremely unique in her in-ring ability and her in-ring style. But there is no other way to say it other than that she went out on her terms. That she left the professional wrestling business on her terms, which I think is one of the reasons that brought her back to TNA, or brought her into TNA, because when she left WWE, she really didn't leave on her terms. So she came back and she left on her terms. Yes, everybody knows her background, what she did in between WWE and TNA, but that's not what we should be talking about. We should be talking about the legacy that she leaves behind as a former professional wrestler. And that's it. Because the only reason why we know Chyna is because of what she did in that 20x20 ring. Not because of what she did outside of it, not because of the problems she had outside of it. We know Chyna because of who she was and what she was able to do in that ring. And that's it. That's it. So if you're a fan of Chyna, look at her legacy. WWE made the word legacy synonymous with WrestleMania this year because Shane McMahon and Undertaker's match had a lot to do with legacy. But over the last 2 weeks, we've lost a lot of good people. And I never met Chyna, I never met Balls Mahoney, and I never met Blackjack Mulligan. But the fact of the matter is, not one person said a bad thing about them. And that tells me that they were really a pleasure to be around and good people. And fact is, Chyna came to us in the form of the first ever female bodyguard in WWE. Just right there was a unique package. And yes, in no uncertain terms, a dream match would be Chyna against Beth Phoenix or Chyna against Awesome Kong. But unfortunately, due to circumstances, it never worked out. It never worked out. But one thing doesn't change. And that one thing that doesn't change is that we know Chyna for who she was in that 20x20 ring, or on Monday Night Raw, or later on TNA Impact. Yes, I know she was there for maybe a month or two, but still, if you look it up, she was there. That's what counts. We know Chyna because of what she did in the ring, what she did in the professional wrestling business, and that's what we should be talking about. The legacy she leaves behind because of what she did in wrestling. And that's it. And if you're talking about anything else, then you're disrespecting Chyna. Yes, she had her problems with WWE. She had her problems with WWE, but to say that Chyna deserved to be in the Hall of Fame before she passed away, Randy Savage deserved to be in the Hall of Fame before he passed away. Owen Hart deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. There's a list of people that deserved to be in the Hall of Fame before they passed away, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Why? Because it is a lot easier to forgive someone when they're not here. Do I think that it would have been something sort of like The Warrior if tensions would have been able to be reconciled? Yes, it would have been a feel-good story. Yes, it would have been great publicity for WWE because they would have brought back a founding member and they would have been able to induct one of the more innovative stables in the company's history, indeed Generation X. But fact is, that's not how things work. That's not how things work, because it goes back to what Jim Cornette said, that if you're not on good terms with Vince and the WWE, then you are screwed in terms of getting into the Hall of Fame. And I will post a link to that video in the description below, because it needs to be heard. But fact is, for anyone who is blaming WWE, who's blaming Triple H, who's blaming Stephanie, who's blaming any of this on WWE, you're out of line. You're out of line because they have nothing to do with it. They have nothing to do with this. You shouldn't be talking about the negatives. You should be talking about the legacy that she leaves behind. Yes, does she deserve to be in the WWE Hall of Fame? Absolutely, she deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. But to say she deserved to be in the Hall of Fame before this, makes her no different than a long list of other people. And even without this, it makes her no different than a long list of other people who deserve to be in the WWE Hall of Fame, but never got that call from Vince because of the terms of their relationship. Because of the terms of their relationship, it made it difficult. But it doesn't change the legacy that she leaves behind. And it doesn't change the fact that she helped tremendously make the Attitude Era one of the greatest eras, if not the greatest era, of pro wrestling. As without Chyna, there would be no DX. Without Chyna, who knows what the Corporation versus DX feud would have been? Who knows who knows pretty much what the mid-card of the WWE would have been? Because Chyna was an integral part of the late 1990s and early 2000s in terms of the mid-card. Who knows what Chris Jericho's career in WWE would have been if he didn't have Chyna to feud with. Because for those of you who don't know, Chyna was Jericho's first feud. So it isn't about the outside. It isn't about behind the scenes. It isn't about what happened outside the company. It isn't about the surname that she wasn't able to call herself a Hall of Famer. It isn't about any of that. What this is about is remembering Chyna for what she did in pro wrestling, not what she wasn't able to do. Remember the ninth wonder of the world for who she was on that camera when she was in that 20x20. Remember her when she was holding up the Intercontinental title, when she beat Jeff Jarrett, or when she beat Chris Jericho, or when she did this, or when she did that, or when she was in the Royal Rumble. Remember her for that. Remember the positives. Celebrate the ninth wonder of the world. Don't look for a negative. Don't look for something to complain about, because this is not something that you should be this is not something that should be warranting complaining. And I want to say this, that for those of you who don't know, I will say this, that I want to offer my deepest condolences to the family, the friends, and the fans of the ninth wonder of the world, Chyna. And I also want to offer my condolences to anyone who believes that there is anything more to this than just remembering a legacy. And I say I want to offer you my condolences because it is obvious you're dead inside. Because why the hell would you be complaining about something like this? Why would you be looking for something to complain about with something like this? Drop it, get over it, and celebrate Chyna. Because I know that's what I'm doing. And that's what I'm going to do in this week's match of the week. So, once again, I want to offer my deepest condolences to Chyna. May she rest in peace. You may be gone, but you'll never be forgotten. Godspeed. We'll remember you for the legacy you left behind. Thank you for the memories. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. Till next time. Later.